Hello my friends, yesterday Russians tried to attack Konstantinovka from the Ruzzian, but their attack was completely cancelled by Ukrainian defense forces. Let's watch the video. Here we go with the video itself. As you see, Russians are using even BTRs. They put the drone protection all around, but it doesn't help. Well, this infantry evacuated from this particular BTR. Also, there were Russian tanks spotted. As you can see, the already standard protection, the anti-drone roads which are being welded all across the tank. And you know what our guys are saying, that sometimes they need 20 up to 30 drones to penetrate this stuff. So it's good that initially you stop it, causing infantry to land at the open field environment and operate with the drone drops against those. And later on, with the help of lots of the FPV drones, completely demolish the tank. But the record was 70 drones per one tank. That's what I know. Well, Russians are getting a little smarter. They're following each other with a longer distance. At least from what I see, this particular convoy, it was faster than usual. And they also tried to use bad weather conditions, early morning fog, but for them, accidentally weather improved and it was clear sky by the time Ukraine spotted the Russian movement. It was just in time for Ukraine to deal with this one. Guys from the 93rd Brigade, they're very capable. Holodny Yar, that's the name of the brigade. As you see, this tankist, he even saw the drone coming, tried to turn, but it was too late. Yeah, one more BTR. So the final task for Ukraine was to find the Russian infantry all around. They landed somewhere in the tree lines. At this time of the year, it's kind of easy to spot Russians because there are no leaves on the trees, so no zelonka. It's called like green, yeah, something green leaves that might create some sort of the shelter. Not any longer. And for Russians, those attacks, convoy attacks, they bring absolutely tremendous losses, even more than during the summertime. The end of the video I cannot show you because there are lots of the Russian infantry running away from Ukrainian drones unsuccessfully. What I may show you is the screenshot from the Russian Telegram channels, military bloggers. They say that our forces are moving ahead north from Ruzzian Yar village. As you saw, unsuccessful movement, yes. So once again, Ruzzian Yar, Russians somehow put this village under their control, but it's not like that. They tried to go there, but totally were demolished. Their main tactical goal is to advance towards Konstantinovka from this direction. So far, Russians are not that successful in Konstantinovka as they want to. But let's go. Yeah, we're gonna skip Mirnograd Pokrovsk for now. I'm gonna speak about it in this video. But I want to point out the Russian breakthrough, that's what they say on their channels, the breakthrough towards Novopavlovka. That's the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. This is the border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk. Well, here Russians attacked with 10 of the armored vehicles. There were some of the tanks and BMPs. Well, in this case, this convoy was spotted kind of late. So Russians managed to successfully reach Novopavlovka, at least southern outskirts of Novopavlovka, and land the infantry forces. So the infantry is now spread in a half of this settlement. They're hiding in the basements, in ruined buildings. But again, the weather improved quite fast, and our guys managed to kaput several of the Russian vehicles. I have one more video showing it. Yeah, you see how our guys are forced to operate kind of the thick fog, but nevertheless, this vehicle was spotted. What is visibility here? Well, maximum 1,000 feet, maybe even less. I would say 200 meters, not more. So obviously our guys are risking to lose lots of the drones, but there is no other option than to try to stop Russian advancement. And here the vehicle was spotted and hit. The video comes from Ukrainian volunteer fund Sternenko, and I also gonna speak about Sternenko himself and his evaluation of the situation on the front lines, which is not that optimistic. However, I agree with most of what he says. But at first, let's watch what happened. So I cannot show you the kabooms themselves, guys, on this platform, maybe just like that, still images. As you may say, this is the Russian BMP. The operation of the Ukrainian drone operators is happening within this settlement. So the convoy was spotted kind of late because, again, of the bad weather. But you see that the weather already improved. While judging on this video, Russians lost tank and several of the armored vehicles. By the way, this tank was cancelled on the way back. Idea for Russians is to go to some of the settlement, land infantry in ruined buildings and basements, then return back and perform the next mid-wave attack. Then again and again, then they create the new bridgehead from that newly occupied village and they may attack further. But you see that the planning was done not ideal for Russians. However, they reached their goal partially, landing the part, at least, of their infantry forces to Novopavlovka. For this reason, it's been covered now in gray color. What is interesting about this attack that Russians put the pontoon bridges here in the small river. It was already confirmed, and they had to spend some of the time for it, again covered by fog. So by the time they made this bridge and went to the village, the weather improved. They were spotted, and Ukraine managed to cause Russians some of the losses, but we are not speaking about complete cancellation of this Russian group. No, it is still presented. Those are not 2-3 soldiers. We may speak about substantial amount of the Russian infantry there, but what about the further attacks? There was one more attempt, but Russians turned away, because Ukraine damaged their vehicles with FPV. So for now, this Russian group is mostly isolated until next Russian attack attempts. All right, now let's go to one of the most difficult directions for Ukrainian army. What is happening in Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk, and Donetsk? This is crossroad, the big part of the front lines, and here Russians are moving every day, getting under control more and more of the villages, creating a threat for Gulai-Pole. And we have the recent update, so it was the day before yesterday, and it is right now. So it's imminent that soon we're gonna see, maybe even this year, the fight for this settlement, which is crucial for Ukrainian defense of Zaporizhia, Gulai-Pole. For Russians, it's gonna be harder than, for example, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, because here is the war obstacle, the river, and just few of the bridges which they might take to cross it. But as we saw with the Russian advancement in Novopavlovka, they might create some sort of the pontoon bridges under the cover of fog. And December months in Ukraine is also very foggy. Well, at first, to reach Gulai-Pole, they need to cross one more river over here near Zatishna village, but I think they can do it here, or maybe even use this road to advance to Gulai-Pole. My prediction that in a couple of weeks we're gonna see either this pocket to be increased widely, or Russians attempt to enter to Gulai-Pole itself. They also have attempts to move to Danilivka. Well, they're already in Danilivka. It was confirmed, and even Deep State has this analysis showing that Russians are moving pretty much fast. Why is it happening, guys? Since Ukraine, it seems like a few months ago, deployed a kind of capable brigade, 110s. Well, just today I discovered a story that the command of the brigade, it was placed in Gulai-Pole, and Russians used ballistic missiles. Unfortunately, they eliminated the command of Ukrainian brigade entirely. Now there is a new command, unfamiliar with this situation. Plus 110s is also kind of new at this specific direction. So for them it's very hard. They're accompanied by some of the territorial defense battalions, but they're not that capable. They're kind of weak compared to, for example, Azov, 93rd, 25th, 33rd Ukrainian brigades, which are acting in Pokrov's direction. Ukraine mostly concentrated the capable forces over here, with this breakthrough of the Russian army in Dobropila direction, and also to unblock Mirnograd, Ukraine is using very capable forces, including the special forces of GUR. But at the same time, roughly 3 weeks ago, Russia moved their capable forces to this direction, towards Zaporizhia and towards Yalta, and also this village called Zaporizhia. Last month, also Gerasimov himself stated that Russia will be successful in Zaporizhia, and we see that definitely Russians are pretty much successful. They are taking the ground very fast. The fastest movement here of the Russian army since 2022. And to check it out, you don't need to be professor or something. Let's go November, October. Let's go to August. Yeah, August. Then they start to propel really fast. 1st of August and today. So you see, for 1 to 3, 4 months, Russians are, or 3.5 months, Russians are quite successful. And Russians are already reaching the last defense line of Ukraine before Zaporizhia. Basically, we are speaking about possible Russian advancement to this very big settlement in 2026. Let me show you the data from Clement Molin Analytic. So here you can see the Russian attack, and those are the recent Russian territorial gains. This is not the gray area. No, it's still under their control. The gray area is over here. Yeah, it's smaller. The red arrows here show the actual directions of the Russian attack. The white arrows that it will be like that Russians will attack towards reaching the Ukrainian main defense line over here. And in some points they already penetrated. Actually, they moved over here. If we speak about the village of Danilivka, it's already behind the defense line. Russians just bypassed it. So the defense line is not that robust as it could be. So once again, they're very close over here. And I would say that now they're very close to Gulaipole. This map is a little bit outdated, yeah, as you might say. And here from Pokrovsk, there are lots of the water obstacles, and here goes, again, the main defense line. If Russians occupy Gulaipole and penetrate the defense line here, or maybe just in a random place through those villages, or here, they might go to the vast space of fields, very flat terrain, very good for advancements, and here Russians may attack in a matter of maybe even several weeks, 2, 3, they could reach the next defense line of Ukraine, which is very close to Zaporizhia already. And Ukraine cannot build new defense lines over here because it's dangerous. Russians are using Lancet drones and other munition, some of the ballistic missiles, aviation gliding bombs to hit Ukrainian engineering forces, which are building those trenches. I already shared the videos on my channel of the actual impacts of Russian Lancet towards tractors and escalators, cranes and everything. So it's not possible to build those lines out here. It's already too late. So the only possible variant for Ukraine is to reinforce defense of Zaporizhia, because with the current events happening here, I give almost 100% that Russians will go to Zaporizhia. There will be the fight for Zaporizhia next year, maximum in 2025, but I think after all the next year they may break through if they advance that fast. We'll see in the coming weeks the fight for Gulaipole. If Gulaipole falls, yeah, it's gonna be even faster. In this context, I would like to read the remark from our volunteer Sternenko, and he knows what he is speaking about because he communicates and works with our guys on the front lines delivering drones. He's the biggest drone volunteer in Ukraine. So I just want to remark part of his yesterday's statement. He already recorded the video today. I watched it, and where he described the situation in more details. What he says that our defense is collapsing. It is just a matter of time, then Russian tanks will enter Zaporizhia and Dnipro. We are heading towards a catastrophe of strategic scale that could lead to the loss of the statehood. And today in his video he described what he meant by that. He says that without army reforms, with the current resources Ukrainian army has, with this limited support from our allies, with sometimes inadequate command of Ukrainian army. Also, I continue to tell about Manko, who is freaking crazy and who commands over the part of this direction. I don't know why Syrskyi didn't dismiss the guy who just openly published the military maps, current military maps on TikTok, and who continued to tell that the Ukrainian army repelled all of the Russian attacks, but somehow every of his reports are more to the west. We repelled attack from those villages, we repelled attack from those villages, and probably in the next year he will say that we repelled Russian attack in Zaporizhia, and then in fact Russians will occupy the settlement. There's pretty much high chance for it, judging on the scale of the Russian army movement, and Sternenko is absolutely right with his remark that without reforms, of the government and first of all army, yes, army command and government, Ukraine has no chances to withstand against prevailing Russian army. And we see that throughout all of those 4 years of war, no reforms were done, or minimum reforms, just at the surface. They tried to polish everything, but everything should be changed. And Syrskyi, well, as for me, Syrskyi is not competent if he keeps those incompetent commanders. And judging on defense organized in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, judging on the defense organized in the Zaporizhia direction, because it was evident that Russia is sending their forces here few months ago, but nothing was done. New defense lines were not built at the proper time. The defense lines which were built over here, they're mostly down to defend attacks from the south, not from the eastern side. Why, you may ask Ukrainian military command or Ukrainian government how they organized everything of that. The organization is terrible. The local command with this crazy Manko is incompetent. And by losing of the statehood, Sternenko means the losing of the big cities like Zaporizhia, Dnipro, maybe more, the occupation of the many more Ukrainian territories, which could lead to internal crisis of the country, and that may lead to the entire occupation of Ukraine or almost full occupation of Ukraine. And he also agrees with the Chechen scenario that Ukrainians will be used in the further wars against some of the other countries, maybe even NATO countries or in Central Asia, because idea for Russia is to restore Russian Empire, Soviet Union, and since they're getting the ground under control, they don't want to stop. It's understandable why Putin is not willing to stop, because he is gaining the ground. He has this initiative on the front lines, and no politician in the world, including Donald Trump, may force Putin to slow down or to stop. Yeah, for Ukraine, obviously, it's better to stop. Zelensky already agrees on that. Okay, we're gonna slow down and stop, stand still, and wait for the Russian regime to change, to collapse. But for Putin, it's better, as he thinks, to continue the fight, continue war, which brings huge losses for Ukraine, for Russia. Ukraine tries to eliminate some of the income for Russians hitting Russian oil facilities. Oil ports like Novorossiysk, yes, it harms Russia a lot, but Russia still has, it's very big economy, big country. For Russia to struggle, you need many, many years, and for Ukraine, defending is the only option, because what other option Ukraine has? To surrender? In this case, Russia will implement its torture policy as it was with Stalin, for example. They will deport lots of the Ukrainians, they will jail lots of the Ukrainians, they will cancel, flatline them, and force to fight for Russians in the future wars. And they will try to erase Ukrainian identity, including language, culture, absolutely everything. That's what they are doing in occupied territories. Let's go to the deep state satellite map. So let me draw you my prediction of what Russians will do in the coming days. After Rivnapila, they occupy this village, they will try to go to this line, and they'll create this pocket, trying to put Hulaypole in the pocket. So then they cross the river, they're gonna pour lots of the reinforcements, and they'll try to attack from the sides, creating this bridgehead. Sorry, it's like this. I'm drawing something strange here. Well, something like this, it will be done by Russians, so infiltrating attempts. That's what they've done in Konstantinivka. Similar, if they have the river, for them it's better to cross it somewhere, and then with infiltration, with sending of the reinforcements, they create bridgehead, and they use this bridgehead for further attacks, and they will try to move straight to Hulaypole, so two of the attacks towards the same settlement. And after occupation of Hulaypole, they're gonna continue the movement. Yes, it's gonna be like that. And at the same time, they're gonna continue their attacks towards this northern area about Pokrovsk. I'm not sure whether they will try to occupy it. For them, I think it's better to secure it, not to waste the forces for the city fights, and continue the movement straight forward towards Zaporizhia. I don't think that the Ukrainian army will be capable to hit them across the river very rapidly or something. So that's natural obstacle. It's kind of wide here. The Vovcha River is not this tiny little river over here. So of course, some of the pontoon bridges are required in case of the bridges destruction, and they already been destroyed. We have the confirmation that Russia destroyed those bridges. So for Ukraine, it's kind of hard to send the forces to cut those Russian attack vectors. All right, now to Mirnograd and Pokrovsk. Here Russia Russia is successful, but Ukraine is withdrawing the forces. It's already evident. If you see this huge gray area, it means that Ukraine is withdrawing the forces, usually in those pockets. So it was 3 days ago, and now it's like that. Russia takes more ground over here, and little by little, Ukraine is concentrating its forces in Mirnograd itself to be ready to jump through this bottleneck as fast as possible at the proper time. I guess it will be bad weather conditions somewhere in the morning, then we'll see. One day I'm gonna update the map and we're gonna see everything of that at first in gray area, then in red. Still the fighting is ongoing for Rodinske. That's the key settlement to maintain control, at least partial control of this bottleneck, and to make the withdrawal of Ukrainian army more or less without significant losses. So that's the plan of Ukraine. The problem that Russia continues its infiltration attempts, and Russian troops were spotted recently over here somewhere, even in this area. Yes, let me show you the video. Yeah, I cannot show you it fully, but it was filmed by Ukrainian drone operators. There was just Russian infantry on this road. The infantry is no more, but it was geolocated. The presence of the Russian sabotage group was spotted almost 3 kilometers away from the previously spotted Russian positions. So this road from Grishina village to the very important crossroad for Ukrainian army, for bottleneck, really. So Russian army is trying to block Ukrainian presence over here, but from the north it's not possible because Ukraine keeps control over at least the part of Rodinske, but here on the south, Russians may send lots of the infiltration groups to make the way out for Ukrainian army more difficult with losses. Unfortunately, weather is also playing significant role in those Russian sabotage operations. So on this map, you can see this advancement of the Russian army. Yes, they were hit there, completely annihilated, but it doesn't guarantee that there won't be new forces sent by Russia the same road. Yeah, so Ukraine should withdraw the forces. Different color. Ukraine should withdraw the forces here right away, maybe in coming days, 2 days, 3 days, early morning, that there is the fog. Just get out, because Russians are capable to close this bottleneck, actually. Will be capable very soon. And still without establishing control over Donbass, Russia mainly cannot occupy lots of the Ukrainian territories. They'll have to waste thousands and thousands of the army men to get Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, Konstantinivka, and probably years and years. Maybe that's why they are trying to hit Ukraine at the most vulnerable place, Zaporizhia, where defense is not that great. So they may attack Zaporizhia, Dnipro, the same from this area, and forcing Ukraine to take the capable forces from Donetsk direction to fight over here. And then Russia may reinforce its group to take Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, Konstantinivka. I guess that could be the plan. Well, anyways, if that advancement was happening from Ukrainian side, we could have said that, oh, that's the very successful Ukrainian counterattack, way better than the failed one in 2023. But unfortunately, it is happening from the Russian side. They move pretty much fast in this southern area, southeast. About Kupiansk, let's go to the place. This is Kharkiv Oblast. There are no any changes for several days, from what I understood. Yeah. Well, if you check out the Michael Center analytic on his map, it shows that the Ukrainian army tries to counterattack in Kupiansk, but at the same time, there are some of the losses of Ukrainian army. Yeah, Russians attacked some of the vehicles and Ukrainian forces on the way. It happened on those railways, which were seen on this video. And also Ukrainian forces were spotted fighting in Kupiansk itself. I guess that the counterattack which Ukraine performed from Tishenkivka village, it mainly failed. Russia is moving from this direction. They're closing this pocket, and I would say that for Ukraine it's better to leave this area right now. Then the Russian forces are pretty much far away and they're not using drones that effectively. So I think it's better to leave behind all of those villages. Otherwise, the losses could be could be big. And that's what Russians did in Kherson Oblast. Yeah, from the political perspective, they left the biggest city they were able to occupy since the beginning of the war, but they tried to save their army, actually. Then they have more of the army, man. Here, Ukraine also should save its people, and for Ukraine, knowing the current realities, then many of the soldiers live in Ukrainian army. Well, because of multiple of the reasons, mainly because of the problems within Ukraine. Also lack of the military support, but the main issues are within Ukraine itself. Again, military command and the Ukrainian government, the recent events, so it's broken. The trust from society towards government is broke. So the situation for Ukraine, even though Russia is still propelling not as fast as in 2022, but in general, this demoralization of Ukrainian society, demoralization of Ukrainian army is higher than it was in 2022. So, unfortunately, it's not the good time for those corruption scandals, but they appear, and the problem is not the corruption scandal and that anti-corruption bureau is doing its job. The problem that it happened, okay, and close friends of Zelensky involved. So that leads to lack of the trust, and military command of Ukraine is also not so great. So if you put one on top another, you create this perfect storm situation for Ukraine and the perfect opportunity for Russians to gain more territories kind of briefly. Guys, I'm telling you the situation as it is. It's not very optimistic. As you saw, our guys are still fighting. They were capable to stop two of the Russian main assaults. Well, this one was not stopped, but Russians landed their infantry, however, with significant losses. Our guys are trying to do what they can do in the current weather conditions. In Mirnograd, it's the failure of Ukrainian command, not of our guys. But in Konstantinivka, definitely the big Russian convoy was stopped, so our guys are still capable. And this counterattack was brilliant operation with our capable armed forces, but Ukraine has just few of those brigades, battalions, so not everywhere they can be used. There is the lack of resources, army men in Ukraine. That's why Russia continue to take the ground. And yesterday on my stream with my subscribers, followers, we analyzed the situation also on the front lines. Yes, I have another channel. It's in the video description just below. I stream there every day, some trash stuff, and also reviewing the news, front lines sometimes. So we came to conclusion that after Russia occupied Soledar, it was a long time ago, and Bakhmut, since the time Ukraine wasn't able to break the situation in its favor. There was the Kursk operation, but finally it finished, yes, and Russians even entered Sumy region after it. So if we speak about this strategic perspective from after the occupation of Soledar and after Ukraine was successful in Kherson, Russia keeps this initiative, and now we see that they increased the pressure on Ukraine. The counteroffensive of Ukraine could have changed something, but no. It was mainly a failure. Ukraine attacked the most defended area. Then the realities of war were already different. There were drones used. So Ukraine basically failed with that, unfortunately. And the thing that I don't see any sort of the changes or perspective for those changes to occur, I see that it's worsening for Ukraine. Also with the military support, by the way, yesterday there were the news published that Europe intensified even the purchases of the Russian natural gas, and they paid Russia billions of euros for that. So from one side they support Ukrainian army, Ukrainian economy, but on the other hand they purchase more of the Russian fossil fuels. Well, thanks to Slovakia, Hungary, but Europe cannot do anything with those countries. And not just Slovakia and Hungary are purchasing those, Also, Russian oil is actively purchased by the vast part of the European Union countries. So the trade continues, and so this war is pretty much strange, as for me. We either fight against this dictatorship regime for the free world and democracy, or what are we doing? So it's very, very strange. So if it continues as it is, I don't have good news, guys. Absolutely. In the long-term perspective, I don't have the good news for Ukraine. Also, I'm sure that there are no good news for Russia. I'm sure that Russia will be disintegrated, but Ukraine has the chances to be, let's say, not defeated completely, but to lose lots of the territories before that collapse of the Russian Federation could happen. Well, like the worst case scenario for Ukraine, that it will be mainly occupied, yeah, by Russia some years ahead, but it will not lead to defeat of Ukraine. There will be some sort of the partisan war like it happened in Afghanistan or something. So the part of Ukrainians will be occupied and Russians will try to erase their identity, but part of the Ukraine will continue its partisan war. So for Russia, it's going to be also pretty much hard, but they will try to eliminate those revolution spots, fire spots. Yeah, it's gonna be like maybe even close to Syrian scenario, but with two of the sides. Also, Russia now provides mobilization campaigns in Luhansk. For example, Luhansk Oblast, they mobilize people, as they say, to defend the Russian energy infrastructure within Russia, but in fact, they send people on the front lines. It's very terrible that they force Ukrainians to fight against Ukrainians. And about the crisis of the Russian economy, yes, for Russia, I need to film a separate video about the current state of it. Yes, it's getting worse for Russia, but it doesn't mean that the Russian economy will crash very soon, no. Plus, it seems like Russia has lots of the army men still and volunteers happy to join the Russian army. They also hire people from in other countries, paying lots of the money, like uncomparable to what Ukraine pays for own soldiers. That's why they still have this resource, and I predicted actually the last year that Russia this year may mobilize some of the soldiers, like open mobilization without any money, as they did in 2022, but de facto they have military men still coming and fighting, especially then they are brainwashed by this Russian propaganda. They are shown on Russian TV that they're only winning, that all of the deaths, they are just occasional. Ukraine has more losses, and Russia takes the ground, so they see they're winning and they're coming to join the Russian army. So maybe I should stop telling about the mobilization in Russia, because I'm quite surprised, yeah, that they still have army men. Despite all of their losses, it is crazy, but they're still joining. In Ukrainian army, with that one, it's very bad, and also it's the part of Ukrainian government policy that it just demoralized its own people. I mean, the Ukrainian government itself. Anyways, we'll see. I guess still Ukraine has no other option than to fight. Otherwise, Russia will just occupy and apply what they usually apply on occupied territories: terror, prisons, and further war. My friends, stand by for one more video today. It's gonna be not about front lines review, but about the news relative to Ukraine, and not only. Thank you for your kind support on Patreon. It really matters. It keeps me running. And also on membership. To join me on Patreon, just check out the link in the video description below. To join me on membership, just press the join button somewhere over here, because that's how you keep me filming and working. You're hiring me for this review, which is, I would say, pretty much honest. I try to say the things as they are. Well, if you don't have this opportunity to support me on Patreon or membership, just press the like to this video and also subscribe for the channel. That's how you boost this video in YouTube algorithms. That also helps me a lot. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.